Welcome, confidential listeners, to another entry from our private archives. This is a space for the unspoken, for the loves that were buried under the weight of tradition and the cold stone of regret. Tonight's story was sent to me by a woman named Eilidh, a soul who grew up in the misty Highlands of Scotland, where family honor is as sharp as a blade and secrets are kept for generations. It is a diary of a forbidden flame, a cowardice that cost decades, and a destiny that refused to be forgotten, titled The Thistle and the Moon. So close the door, turn down the lights, and listen closely, because the audience for this truth is only you. It's a terrifying thing to be young and in love, in a place where every neighbor is a witness. I was a girl living in a gray stone house in Inverness, hidden away from the world by the strict rules of a father who saw shadows in every corner. My family had gone to a wedding in a neighboring village, and for the first time, the house felt like it belonged only to me. I thought we had the whole night. I thought the stars would keep our secret. I invited Lachlan. Our families had been at odds for generations, and our love was a forbidden map we were only beginning to explore. No one really knew. Maybe they suspected, but in a small village, suspicion is just a whisper until it's caught in the light. We were there in the quiet of my room, sharing whispered promises and a closeness that felt like a revolution. I was so young, so certain that my heart knew the way. But the heavy wooden door creaked open, and the silence was shattered by my little sister's scream. She was standing there, her eyes wide with a shock she couldn't understand. In less than a minute, the whole house was awake. My mother appeared, and then my father. "Lachlan MacLeod, you coward! Get out of this house before I skin you alive and leave you for the crows. You've brought shame to this roof, and you've betrayed my trust." Lachlan fled into the misty night, his eyes filled with a shock I'll never forget. He didn't lift a hand to defend himself, not out of weakness, but out of a tragic respect for the man who owned my world. I watched him disappear into the thick Highland fog, and I realized that the stone walls that once protected me had just become my prison. That night didn't just end with a slammed door. It ignited a fire that burned through our entire family tree. My father didn't just stop at throwing Lachlan out. He was like a wounded animal seeking blood. Before the sun had even touched the peaks of the Highlands, my parents were at my aunt's door, demanding justice for what happened in my bedroom. You have to understand the way things work in these small villages. Honor is everything. What was an innocent romance between two teenagers was twisted into a scandal of the highest order. My mother and my aunt, sisters who had shared every secret since childhood, broke the wood over us. They screamed until their voices were hoarse, blaming one another for the shame we had brought upon the name. "Your son is a predator, Mary. He crept into my house like a thief to steal my daughter's virtue. I never want to see his face or yours again." In less than 24 hours, the Mackenzie and MacLeod clans were at war. A line was drawn in the Highland dirt that no one was allowed to cross. I was trapped in the middle, hearing my father call Lachlan names that made my skin crawl. They didn't care when I cried. They didn't care when I told them we loved each other. In their minds, Lachlan was 19 and I was only 15. He was a predator and I was a victim who didn't know better. I was locked away, forbidden from even looking out the window toward my aunt's house. The air in Inverness felt thick with a different kind of fog, a fog of hatred that replaced the love I had felt just hours before. I was alone, listening to the echoes of a family breaking apart, and I had no idea that the worst was yet to come. A few days had passed since the war between our families ignited. I was a prisoner in my own home, the silence broken only by my father's heavy sighs and my mother's muffled sobbing. But Lachlan was not a man to surrender easily. He knew every shortcut through the stones and the mists of Inverness. He found me during a moment when the surveillance wavered. I was in the back garden, feeling the biting Highland chill when he emerged from the shadows. He looked older, his face strained by the tension of the last few days. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Eilidh, listen. Everyone in the village knows now. What was our secret has become their gossip. There's no way for us to stay here, not with your father wanting my blood. Won't you come away with me? Run away from all this bitterness?" I could barely breathe. Go away? Where? How would we survive? He explained that he had spoken to an acquaintance, a man who would find him work at the docks on the Isle of Skye on the west coast. He painted a picture of us together, facing that vast sea, living a love that would no longer have to hide behind locked doors. My heart screamed yes, but my mind was paralyzed. I was still so young, barely more than a child. The idea of abandoning everything, of facing my father's fury, and the possibility of being hunted down because I didn't belong to myself yet, it was terrifying. Fear was a monster larger than my desire. "Lachlan, I don't know. What if he comes after us? What if he finds us? I'm just a girl. I don't have your courage." I was torn between the romantic adventure of a life by his side and the sheer dread of the consequences. I loved Lachlan more than myself, but in that moment, cowardice embraced me with the same strength he used to. I didn't know that my choice that night would dictate the course of my loneliness for the next 20 years. Lachlan didn't take my fear well. He was hurt, deeply. He told me that if I truly loved him, I would have found the courage to step into the dark by his side. He called me a coward, and though it stung like a whip, I knew he was right. He turned his back on me and vanished into the fog. I didn't know then that it would be 4 long years before I saw his face again. 2 weeks later, the word reached our kitchen like a cold draft. Lachlan was gone. He had moved to the Isle of Skye to work the docks, just as he said he would, but he had gone alone. My parents celebrated it as a victory, thinking they had saved me. They didn't realize they hadn't saved me from a predator. They had just locked me in a room with a broken heart. I wasn't allowed to leave the house without an escort. Every time I looked toward the horizon, I imagined the salt air of the coast. I spent my nights weeping into my pillow, muffled so my father wouldn't hear. I was mourning a man who was still breathing, and that is a special kind of hell. My life became a repetitive cycle of chores and silence. The war between our mothers continued. The 2 sisters never spoke again, their shared history erased by a single night of passion. I became a ghost in my own youth. I watched other girls my age go to dances and find suitors, but I was the tainted Mackenzie girl. Every time the wind howled from the west, I thought it was calling my name in Lachlan's voice. I wondered if he had found peace. I wondered if he still hated me for being a girl instead of a woman. I was waiting for a letter that never came, for a sign that he was coming back to fetch me. But the Highland mists kept their secrets, and the silence only grew deeper.
8 months. I had spent 8 months counting the days, surviving on the thin hope that Lachlan would realize he couldn't live without me and come back to storm my father's castle. But the Highlands are indifferent to the prayers of young girls. One afternoon, my mother's sister-in-law arrived with a look on her face that made my stomach drop. They didn't even try to hide the conversation. I was standing in the hallway, pressed against the cold stone, when my mother delivered the news with a smile that felt like a blade. "Have you heard, Eilidh? Your cousin has made his bed on the Isle of Skye. He's gone and gotten some local girl pregnant, a girl named Fiona. Your aunt says he's going to marry her. Do you see now? He never loved you. He was just looking for a warm place to hide." The world turned gray. I felt a physical weight press down on my chest, a pressure so intense I thought my ribs would snap. He had forgotten me. While I was rotting in this house, smelling the ghost of his scent on my old blankets, he was holding someone else. He was starting a life. I locked myself in my room and did the only thing I knew how to do anymore. I cried until my throat was raw. I hated him. I hated the girl on the coast, but mostly I hated the 15-year-old version of myself who stayed behind. I realized then that while I was waiting for our story to continue, he had already started a new book. Lachlan married her. He took a job at the shipyards, bought a small plot of land, and became a father. The bridge between us wasn't just made of family hatred anymore. It was made of a wife, a child, and 1,000 miles of regret. I wasn't a lover anymore. I was just a mistake from his past.
4 years. For 4 long years, I lived in a world where Lachlan did not exist, except in the painful corners of my mind. I had heard rumors, another child, a house built with his own hands, a life that seemed solid and far away. But then, the matriarch of our family died. Our grandmother was the last thread holding the clans together, and even a war couldn't keep us from her burial. The funeral was held on a hillside in Inverness, under a sky the color of wet slate. I stood with my parents, wrapped in a black wool coat that couldn't keep out the chill. And then I saw him. He was standing across the open grave, taller now, his shoulders broader from years of labor on the docks. He wasn't a boy anymore. He was a man. My breath caught in my throat. I wanted to scream his name, to run across the freshly turned earth and ask him why he didn't wait. But he wasn't alone. Fiona was at his side, holding a small boy by the hand, another child tucked into the crook of her arm. She looked like a woman who was loved. She looked like the life I should have had. We didn't speak. We couldn't. The hatred between our parents was still a jagged fence between us. But at one point, as the minister spoke of ashes and dust, Lachlan looked up. Our eyes met across the grave of the woman who had birthed our mothers. It was a gaze that lasted only seconds, but it felt like an eternity. In his eyes, I saw a flash of the old fire mixed with a deep, echoing sadness. He looked away first. He leaned down to pick up his son, and I realized with a sickening clarity that I was a stranger to him. I was a ghost from a village he had outgrown. When the service ended, he walked away toward his truck without a backward glance. I stood there by the empty grave, feeling more buried than my grandmother. When I turned 23, I decided that I couldn't let my heart stay a cemetery for dead memories. I moved to the city, away from the judgmental eyes of the village, and found work in a local gym. That was where I met Alistair. He was a businessman from Aberdeen, nearly 20 years older than me, but he had a kindness in his eyes that made me feel like I could finally stop running. Alistair was handsome, stable,
and he treated me with a respect I had never known. He didn't look at me as the tainted Mackenzie Durrell. He saw a woman he wanted to protect. For the first time, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. I didn't feel the wild, burning fire I had felt for Lachlan, but I felt a warm hearth, and after years of Highland winters, that was enough. My parents were overjoyed. They saw Alistair's success, his grand house, and his honorable reputation, and they told me I had finally found my place. I tried to believe them. I liked him. I truly did. I told myself that a quiet love was better than a forbidden one that only left you with scars. We married in a small, elegant ceremony. I didn't get my dream of a white lace veil. Alistair was a widower, and we kept things modest, but I felt a sense of peace. 10 months later, my daughter, Maisie, was born. She was the light of my soul, a beautiful reminder that life could still bloom from a cracked heart. I moved into his home, a beautiful apartment in a stone building he owned. I was a wife, a mother, and a respected member of the community. I was moving forward, not backward. But even in the middle of the night, while Alistair slept soundly beside me, I would sometimes wake up to the sound of the wind, wondering if the waves on the Isle of Skye were still calling my name. For 3 years, I lived a life of quiet contentment. Alistair was a good man, a provider, a gentle father to Maisie, and the shield that finally stood between me and the gossip of my past. I thought I had found my final chapter. I thought the Highlands had finally finished testing my spirit. But fate in the north is as unpredictable as a winter gale. It was a Tuesday. Alistair had been away on business in Edinburgh dealing with the wool trade. He was driving back through the mountain passes, those winding, narrow roads where the fog sits so thick you can't see the hood of your own car. The police told me it was a head-on collision with a truck. There was black ice on the road, hidden beneath a light dusting of snow. Alistair didn't stand a chance. In a single heartbeat, the man who had rebuilt my life was gone, leaving me a widow at 26, alone in a large house with a 3-year-old child. I felt like I was back at my grandmother's grave, but this time there was no crowd. It was just me and the silence of a life interrupted. I had lost my first love to cowardice, and I had lost my second love to the cold, hard reality of the road. I felt cursed, as if the Highlands demanded I remain solitary, like a lone rowan tree on a cliffside. I inherited the stone building and the businesses. I had enough to survive without working, but survival isn't the same as living. I spent a 1.5 years in a blur of mourning, focusing every ounce of my energy on Maisie. I had closed the book on men. I had closed the book on happiness. I was just waiting for the days to pass until I grew old. A 1.5 years had passed since Alistair was laid to rest. I had become accustomed to the silence of the stone building in Aberdeen. It was a Sunday afternoon, one of those gray, heavy days where the sky seems to touch the rooftops. I was in the kitchen with Maisie, sorting through old linens, trying to stay busy so the memories wouldn't catch up to me. Suddenly, the intercom buzzed. It was a sharp, jarring sound that made my heart skip a beat. I wasn't expecting anyone. I walked to the wall and stared at the small black and white monitor. I could see the silhouette of a man standing in the mist outside the heavy oak door. I pressed the button, my voice trembling slightly. "Hello? Eilidh? Is that you?" It's Lachlan. I'm in the city for a few days. I was wondering if we could have a word." My body reacted before my mind could. My knees turned to water, and I had to lean against the cold stone wall to keep from collapsing.
It had been 20 years since we were caught in that bedroom. 20 years of silence, of different beds, of children with different names. And yet, hearing my name and his voice felt like a key turning in a lock I thought was rusted shut. I buzzed him in. I stood at the top of the stairs, my hands shaking so violently I had to hide them in the folds of my sweater. When he reached the landing, he stopped. He was older, his hair flecked with gray, but the fire in his eyes was the same one that had scorched my soul when I was 15. He looked at Maisie and then back at me. I could see the grief in his expression. He had heard about Alistair. We sat in the parlor, the air thick with the ghosts of everything we hadn't said at the funeral. Then he looked me straight in the eye and asked the question I had been asking myself for 2 decades. Eilidh, I never stopped thinking about you, not for a single day. Tell me the truth. In all these years, did you ever regret not running away with me to the coast?
I stared at him, and for a moment, I was 15 again, standing in that rain-soaked garden. The regret was a physical weight in the room, heavier than the stone walls around us. I wanted to lie, to protect my pride, to say I had forgotten. But looking into his eyes, the truth spilled out like wine from a broken glass. Every day, Lachlan. I regretted it every single day. I was a child, and I was terrified, but I never stopped loving the boy who asked me to run. He reached across the space between us and took my hand. His skin was rough from years of labor on the Isle of Skye, but his touch was the only thing that had ever made me feel whole. He told me his marriage to Fiona had been a ghost story for years. They were roommates bound by duty, but his heart had stayed in Inverness. Then don't be afraid now. We are the masters of our own lives. The clans, the neighbors, the past, they don't own us anymore. Come home with me, Eilidh. Let's finally see that sea we talked about. I didn't hesitate this time. I looked at Maisie, and I knew I wanted her to see a mother who lived for love, not for the shadows of dead men. There was an uproar, of course. My father refused to speak to me, and the village whispered that I was disrespecting Alastair's memory. But for the first time in my life, the whispers didn't reach me. I packed our life into a few trunks and left the gray stone of Aberdeen behind. We moved to a small cottage overlooking the jagged cliffs of Skye. Lachlan is no longer just my cousin or my forbidden memory. He is my husband, my partner, and the man who waited 20 years for me to find my courage. The thistle is a stubborn flower. It survives the frost, the wind, and the rocky soil of the Highlands. And when it finally blooms, it is the most beautiful thing in the world. I am no longer the girl who stayed. I am the woman who returned. And so we close the archive of the Isle of Skye, a reminder that the clocks of the heart don't keep the same time as the world outside. Eilidh and Lachlan proved that some fires can't be smothered by decades of silence. What about you, my listeners? Is there a voice from 20 years ago that you're still waiting to hear? Or are you the one who needs to go back and knock on the door? If this story moved you, leave a comment below. Like, subscribe, and share this with a soul who needs to know it's never too late to be brave. The moon is rising over the Highlands, and the secrets are finally at rest. Stay safe and keep your secrets close. Good night.